Briefing the media on Friday, Electricity Minister Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa said the installation of smart meters that allow the utility to manage energy consumption was already showing results in the Eastern Cape. So let's find out how these meters actually work with Grootboom, who's the MMC for Electricity and Engineering in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. Lance, thank you so much for making time for us. Just help our viewers understand how these meters work. How is this energy consumption being managed?
Good afternoon, Clement. Clement, how we manage it, we've installed roughly 84,000 ripple control geysers in households in Nelson Mandela Bay. Now, it's basically controlled from a central position in one of our offices at our electricity department. And what we can do from there is we can switch all the geysers off in the city. And what we can save during load shedding is roughly about 50 megawatts of power. Now, there is about 2 stages in the city. So this technology that we've installed is really assisting us in the city, especially controlling load shedding. And we are looking into putting more into households within our city. Now, the minister, when he visited here on Friday, he was very impressed to see that Nelson Mandela Bay has installed so much ripple control geysers, and that it takes the load off from the grid, the national grid. But we obviously wanted to do more because we wanted the minister to understand that as a city we have put a lot of load shedding mitigation strategies in place, and one of them is the ripple control geyser control system, and that was just one, but there were other technologies or other models or systems that we put in place to make sure that we reduce the load in the city. Now, we specifically spoke to the minister on the refurbishment of our gas turbine. We have a gas turbine that was built in 1982 in our city, and obviously it was last operating in 2010. Now, we don't have the capital to start up that or to refurbish that gas turbine, but once that comes up, we will be able to put back into the grid roughly about 40 megawatts of power, which is another up to 2 stages in our city. So we have looked at the geyser control together with the gas turbine as a medium-term strategy that's supposed to reduce loads up to stage 4 in our city. And this is what we call a game changer to assist our industries in Nelson Mandela Bay that is really feeling the pinch. Hence, the minister came down to come and address and to understand what was going on with a lot of businesses working short time and not meeting their production goals.
So does this work around peak systems where you decide most of the times to switch off the geysers in the evenings or in the mornings? I'm just trying to understand how you work around the scheduling, because there are some people who work from home. There are some people who need to use, what they get from the geysers at a particular time, and that may be the time when you are switching them off. So how do you deal with the issue of scheduling and when it's best to switch them off?
What we have done, we've put the geyser ripple control in a group. So it's one of our group stages. And like we've put our whole city into different groups. So it's a group stage. So what we do is we switch off during the mornings and we switch off in the afternoons. So there is the times when we switch, especially when Eskom is requesting us to reduce our load. There is the time when we switch it off from a central place. And that switches off all the geysers that has been installed with those ripple control devices.
And you've mentioned 84,000 so far. How many more are you planning to install in other areas? Okay.
On our system, we've installed about more than 110,000 into homes. But 84 we can see from our system is working. So there's about a 20% people that has bypassed it. So there are those who have tampered with those devices that we've installed. But when we switch off from a central point, we can see the load drop at 50 megawatts of power during that period. So that tells us that those ripple control geysers are still in, they are working. But like I said, it's supposed to be more, because what we're supposed to get is about 66 megawatts when we switch off. Hence, we know that there are residents that has been tampering with those devices.
Oh, yeah, and speaking of tampering of devices, when you talk about meters, and you just look at other areas that are already using that system for particularly electricity, you know, that's prone to exploitation. There are some people that find a way to connect illegally. How are you dealing with that possibility?
Yes, what we have, we've got a loss and control department, our retail and commercial one. They have teams that goes out on a daily basis. We do it roughly an estimate of 100 and 120 homes a day, where we disconnect people. Those people who has bypassed, we are giving them a straight connection. Hence, in January, beginning of the year, we run an amnesty program where we requested people that has been tampering with the meter boxes to come forward. And what we will do is we will waive any penalty. But they must tell us what they've done. And many people came forward over the two phases that we had. About over 25,000 households came forward that has been tampering with their meter boxes. And we are now fixing those meter boxes and making those people again paying customers to our city. So that is working according to plan. And there are also some businesses where we've seen e-correct billing happening. And we also, with our teams, our commercial teams going out daily, we basically declared a war on losses in our city in order to reduce the non-technical losses within our city.
Okay, so you've mentioned 50 megawatts of power that you save. What's been the impact on the residents themselves? So in the Western Cape, we've seen that in some instances, when the rest of the country is on stage 6, for instance, it's possible for them to be at lower stages of load shedding. Is that the benefit for the citizens of Nelson Mandela Bay?
That is definitely the benefit. I think in the entire country, where people have load shedding, Nelson Mandela Bay has less. I've seen it. I was in Cape Town, and I see Cape Town has more load shedding during those stages, because what we do for our domestic, they don't go more than 2 hours of load shedding. Sometimes maybe twice in a day, but will never be more than 2.5 hours. And basically we do 2 hours, and 30 minutes is extra just for artisans and our technicians to get to the switch and switching off and switching on. So that is what we've done. So the ripple control geyser system has actually assisted us. But remember, this is not all that we are doing. We have a solar farm. Eskom has a solar farm that was built outside our city, which they wheel electricity to our grid. And that is also being considered within our grid. So that is also benefiting us, and I think that is about 27 megawatts of power, because according to the minister on Friday, he said that has been considered by Eskom when they take into consideration what we're supposed to shed and what is our current load that we carry. And so that is also, and what we've done is we do load curtailment with qualifying industries, and we're looking at different models currently of load curtailment, because what we've done, and we've explained this to the minister, to keep the economy running in the city, we came up with a business chamber with a 24-hour voluntary load shedding for qualifying industries. We've got over 30 companies in our city, big, large companies, that are participating in the 24-hour voluntary load shedding. And what it basically means for after stage 5, what we do is that we allow them to switch them off voluntary on the last day or that last cycle. So just once a week they will go off. I think the big problem is when we go to stage 7, stage 6, 7, and 8, then it becomes a problem, because then the switching off becomes more for those businesses. But between stage 1 and 4, we protect our industries here in Nelson Mandela Bay. And I think we're the only municipality in the city that provides this protection to large businesses in the city. So we wanted the minister to come down to look at what we've done so far in terms of reducing the load and what we plan to do to put energy back into our grid because it's a challenge by getting power from IPPs for now, because that process takes a little bit long. And we want to work very quick to get some quick wins here in the city to make sure that during this winter period, we make sure that our economy is still running and the lights are at least on for our residents and businesses in the city. Hence, with the mayor here, and he saw what we've done, he did inform us that he will be looking into funding our gas turbine, because once that gas turbine is running, remember I said those are 2 stages, and we can use that when we go to stage 5 or 6 upwards in order to use that specifically for our businesses and make sure that our businesses can participate in it, just to make sure that really, because we don't want, load shedding has been keeping the lights off in the city. What we don't want to shed is jobs. And we can see Nelson Mandela Bay having over 34% of unemployment rate in the city. We can't afford more. It's already difficult for us to keep investment here, to attract investment. Now we have to make sure we keep the investment that is here in our city, and we will do everything in our power. That's why we explained to the minister on Friday that his intervention with our gas turbine and taking into consideration our mitigating strategies of reducing the load, that we should somehow be exempted, or somehow our large businesses should be exempted, or the minister should speak to Treasury and see if we can't get funding for our gas turbine in order to just alleviate the pressure on large businesses in the city and our residents at large.
All right. Lance Grootboom, MMC for Electricity and Engineering in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. Thank you for making time for us.